One can get started. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you all. Okay, the time is now 10:01, and I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Bega Chairperson Norma Hutcheson, and this meeting is being held at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability at 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700 West, and also virtually. Joining me for this meeting are board members Charles Nottingham, Felice Smith, Darrin Sobin, and Melissa Tucker. Together, the five of us constitute a quorum for this meeting. Since it was first posted, there was one change to the agenda. The meeting that was originally scheduled for January 9th was moved to today, January 16th, due to the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter, and federal holiday on January 9th. So please take a minute to review the agenda, and then we'll have, if we could, a motion to adopt the agenda.
Good. I'll second that motion.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the board has adopted the agenda for today's meeting. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes, and before us today are the December draft meeting minutes. We also need a motion to consider approval of the meeting minutes from December.
I'll offer the motion that we approve the minutes from the December meeting.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider the approval of the December 2024 meeting minutes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the board approves the December 2024 meeting minutes. Next item on the agenda, we'll hear from the Office of Open Government. Director Niquelle Allen is appearing in person. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government, and I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government, or OOG. Our mission is to ensure that all persons receive full and complete information concerning the affairs of the District of Columbia government and the actions of its officials. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued its work to ensure that District of Columbia government's operations are transparent, open to the public, and promote civic engagement. To that end, OOG has enforced the Open Meetings Act, advised on the Freedom of Information Act requirements, and provided training on those transparency laws. OOG proudly served as advocates for an open and transparent government. I will begin with Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice that OOG has provided since the last board meeting. Advisory opinions. I have not issued an advisory opinion since the last board meeting. Informal advice. Since the last board meeting, OOG has responded informally via email, telephone, or teleconference to requests for assistance as follows: 5 requests for Open Meetings Act advice, 9 requests for Freedom of Information Act advice, and 10 requests for assistance with our website, open-dc.gov. Next is a report on OOG's meeting monitoring. OOG staff attends public bodies meetings in person and remotely to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. They also inspect public bodies' websites and OOG's central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and records. OOG's attorneys provide legal advice on OMA compliance and take corrective action if necessary. Since the last board meeting, OOG's staff attended 20 public body meetings. As a result of the monitoring, 5 corrective measures were communicated. The public bodies failed to do the following: 1, post a detailed agenda; 2, conduct a vote by roll call and maintain a quorum; and 3, provide proper meeting notice. Next are OOG's training and outreach activities. First, the Office of the Attorney General's training on juvenile confidentiality. On December 9th, I, along with attorney advisors Brandon Lewis and Joan Lelma, attended the juvenile confidentiality training presented by Senior Assistant Attorney General David Rosenthal of the Office of the Attorney General's Public Safety Division. This 2-hour course covered confidentiality of records and proceedings pertaining to juvenile arrest, litigation, adjudication, including recent amendments to the statute made by the Secure D.C. Act. Practicing Law Institute's new challenges for Section 230 Generative AI and Federal Legislation training course. On December 10th, I completed the Practicing Law Institute CLE course on Generative AI and Federal Litigation. Course explored Section 230 of the Communications Decent Act, the most recent legislative efforts to reform Section 230 by having it sunset by the end of 2025 to force Congress and stakeholders to work together in good faith to develop a long-term solution that preserves the ability to innovate and ensures accountability for harms platforms pose. The training provided an overview of the May 22nd, 2024 Congressional Subcommittee hearing on a proposal to sunset Section 230. It also discussed connections between generative AI and Section 230 and whether generative AI is covered by Section 230's liability shield. The panel discussed the U.S. Supreme Court's decisions in Gonzalez versus Google and Twitter versus Tamanay, forces involving the social media platforms' algorithms that allegedly promoted content that allegedly aided and abetted terrorism. DC Office of Public Records, OPR, records transfer training. On December 11th, Attorney Lelma attended OPR's record transfer training facilitated by DC archivist William Branch. The training covered the process for transferring records to the Record Center and DC Archives. Open Meetings Act training for the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School Board. On December 13th, Attorney Lelma presented OMA training to the board and subcommittee members of the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School. I, along with OOG staff, attended the training virtually. District of Columbia's Office of Notary Commissions and Authentications Notary Orientation. On December 18th, Paralegal Kimberly Brown attended the DC Office of Notary Commissions and Authentications Notary Orientation. This orientation provided an overview of performing notarial acts in the District of Columbia and instructions on the steps to become a notary public. Practicing Law Institute's Legal Ethics for Paralegals training course. On December 27th, Paralegal Brown attended PLI's Legal Ethics for Paralegals training. This training course covered the rules and conduct and regulations that govern paralegals' work, how legal ethics impacts professional responsibility, and paralegals' ethical obligations. PLI training session, how to conduct an effective international discovery for paralegals and litigation staff. On January 8th, Paralegal Brown attended this training for paralegals that covered the role of paralegals in international litigation discovery, how to handle discovery from different legal systems, and how to address cultural issues, the impact of international privacy law and discovery requests, and the best practices for handling data location. Open Meetings Act training for the Department on Disability Services. On January 14th, Attorney Anthony J. Scarborough presented an Open Meetings Act training to the Department on Disability Services, Rehabilitation Services Administration. The litigation and legislative update is next. Litigation, Gooch versus the Metropolitan Police Department, District of Columbia, case number 2023-CAB0024-04, DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case in which a requester plaintiff sued the district for records related to his conviction. The plaintiff received partially redacted records from MPD. On July 24, 2024, the district filed a motion for reconsideration of its motion for summary judgment. Following the court's denial of the defendant's motion, a status hearing was held on December 13, 2024. The parties agreed to work on redactions and a bond index before the next hearing. At a status hearing on December 19th, 2024, the defendant provided an update on redactions. On December 24th, 2024, the case was transferred to Judge Ebony Stott. A status hearing has been set for February 13th, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Kamel Dubose versus the District of Columbia, case number 2018 CA000378-B. I have previously reported on this case involving the Board of Dentistry's disciplinary records. The district filed a renewed motion for summary judgment on September 13th, 2024, arguing the denial of a public interest fee waiver to the plaintiff requester was fully justified and that the $9,000 fee estimate was reasonable. On October 31st, the plaintiff filed his reply to defendant's opposition to plaintiff's Rule 50B6D motion, 56D motion, alternative motion for enlargement of time to defendant's renewed motion for summary judgment. The plaintiff argued that the defendant introduced evidence that was never previously introduced to the record prior to the remand of this case. Plaintiff also asserts that he is eligible for the requested records with a fee waiver and attorney's fees because the lawsuit was necessary for him to obtain his records. Copies of both motions have been added to Dropbox. On December 23rd, the case was transferred to Judge Robert D. Okun. A status hearing is set for February 14th, 2025 at 11 o'clock a.m. OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Tax Analyst versus the District of Columbia, case number 2020-CA-001999B. I have previously reported on this case in which Tax Analyst, a publisher of tax journalists, and reporter Aaron Davis sued the District of Columbia under FOIA after the Office of Tax and Revenue denied their request for 24 private letter rulings or PLRs, which are OTRs, responses to circumstances and data submitted by a particular taxpayer. The plaintiff argued that the advice given to them in the PLR has broader applicability, so OTR must release them after redacting specific details that would identify the underlying taxpayers. At a December 2nd status hearing, the court gave its oral ruling concerning the documents and ruled in favor of tax analysts. The district is expected to turn over redacted documents by January 24th, 2024. Leslie Richards versus D.C. Finance and Treasury, case number 24-CV-0034, D.C. Court of Appeals, case number 2021 CA003762-B in D.C. Superior Court. I previously reported on this pro se case in which plaintiff appellant sought information about a disbursement. The Superior Court dismissed the complaint because the plaintiff failed to serve the district and state a claim upon which relief can be granted. The plaintiff appealed. On July 8th, 2024, the district filed a motion for summary affirmance of the Superior Court's dismissal. The district argued on appeal that the plaintiff failed to challenge the reason for the dismissal and offered no basis for the reversal. The plaintiff appellant filed a response to the District of Columbia's motion on July 15th, 2024. On September 30th, 2024, the court denied the District of Columbia's motion for summary affirmance. A motion for oral arguments was filed by the plaintiff appellant on January 10th, 2025. This motion has not been yet uploaded to the Court of Appeals website. OOG's staff will continue to monitor this case as well. And the last case is Phillips versus the District of Columbia, case number 122CV00277-JEB in DC District Court. I have previously reported on this case in which Amy Phillips alleged in a federal section 1983 action that MPD maintains a watch list targeting certain DC FOIA requesters. On May 17, 2023, Ms. Phillips moved to amend her complaint to add supplemental jurisdiction, a state claim under DC FOIA. The original complaint just alleged U.S. constitutional violations. In August 12, 2024, memorandum of opinion, the District Court for the District of Columbia denied the plaintiff's motion for partial summary judgment and granted in part and denied in part the district's motion for summary judgment. The plaintiff sought summary judgment for defendants' alleged policy of subjecting FOIA requests for high-profile materials to additional scrutiny. The court found that the plaintiff's characterization of her amended complaint was inaccurate. Specifically, the court found that at no prior point did the plaintiff intimate that her suit included a challenge to the district's policy on high-profile materials, stating that she cannot amend her complaint through the summary judgment briefing. The court denied her motion on this basis. Defendant's motion for summary judgment states that the plaintiff lacks standing to seek prospective relief has established that the policy she wishes to challenge ever existed or caused harm and cannot show that this policy is attributable to the District of Columbia. The court granted summary judgment to the defendant regarding the plaintiff's claim for injunctive relief. However, the court concluded that the plaintiff produced enough evidence for a reasonable jury to find that the D.C. police chief's subordinates created a custom of burdening FOIA requests coming from MPD critics, and that the chief was aware, or at least should have been aware, of this practice. Following the issuance of this opinion, the court referred the case to a magistrate judge for mediation. Mediation proceedings were held on December 16, 2024 and December 18, 2024. A joint status report was issued by the parties on December 19, 2024. Mediation is ongoing, and the court has ordered the parties to file further joint status report by January 22nd. A copy of the joint status report has been added to Dropbox, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Legislation, DC Critical Infrastructure Freedom of Information Act, Clarification Amendment Act of 2024. I reported on this new law last year. The bill was transmitted to Congress and became law on December 10th, 2024. This bill exempts for disclosure critical infrastructure information or plans that contain critical infrastructure information for the critical infrastructures of the District of Columbia Water and Sewer Authority. Last in my report are administrative matters. Performance oversight hearing. Director Cooks and I received correspondence from Councilmember Brooke Pinto on January 8th, 2025, in her capacity as chairman of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. The committee will hold this annual performance hearing for the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability on February 5th, 2025. I look forward to reporting on OOG's accomplishments in fiscal year 24 and our goals for fiscal year 25. The last matter is the FOIA portal public comment. On February 12th, 2025 at 4 p.m., the Office of Open Government, in partnership with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, or OCTO, will host a public forum on OCTO's new FOIA portal. The FOIA will include a demonstration of the new portal and provide a question and answer session and an opportunity for the public to comment on the new FOIA portal. This concludes the Office of Open Government's January 16th, 2025 report. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Allen. Are there any questions for Director Allen?
Just I had one question. Thank you. That was an excellent report.
Thank you.
And as you were going through some of the litigation you're monitoring, I was thinking to myself, and I may have lost track myself, so if you can help me. There was a case we were monitoring or following involving the Washington Post, and I think seeking access to medical examiner records coming out of the January 6th horrible events up at the Capitol. It may have been resolved. It's been obviously several years, but it seemed like we were monitoring it for a while, and then I lost track of it. But you could maybe just get back to me. You don't have to worry about it today. It's not urgent. Your excellent report got me thinking about other cases that were sounded interesting or sounded important, and then I just lost track of that one.
Okay, we'll make sure to update you on that.
Appreciate
that. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you again, Director Allen. Next on our agenda is a report from the Director of the Office of Government Ethics, Director Ashley Cooks. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First is an update on the status of OGE operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status change that may occur because of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. For open investigations by status, we have 51 matters that are open, 1 matter that is open pending a show cause hearing for a grand total of 52 open matters. Open undocketed matters, we have a grand total of 3. Pending state investigations by status, we have 37 matters that are closed pending collection, 1 matter stayed pending DC Superior Court case, 4 matters stayed for OIG investigation, 3 matters stayed for U.S. District Court case for a grand total of 45. For regulatory matters by status, we have 35 matters that are closed pending collection, 52 matters that are open for a grand total of 87. Again, we currently have 52 open investigations and 8 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 12 new matters. The investigative team resolved 13 investigations since the board last met. This number does not reflect the number of complaints that were dismissed for a lack of jurisdiction. Yesterday, the quarterly complaint report for quarter one of fiscal year 2025 was published to the Bega website, as well as a press release and heat map, which outlines the number of and types of cases that were closed in the quarter. During fiscal year 2025 Q1, OGE closed 85 matters. 34% of the matters closed during this quarter, 29 out of 85 matters, involved allegations that were outside of Bega's jurisdiction. For the 56 closed matters within Bega's jurisdiction, allegations related to potential violations of rules governing outside employment and activities topped the list. Accounting for 16 matters, 29%. Allegations of preferential treatment and the lack of impartiality accounted for 13 matters, 23%, while misuse of government resource allegations were involved in 8 matters, 14%. Allegations of use of public office for private gain in 5 matters, 9%, and potential violations of nepotism rules were at issue in 4 matters, 7%. Rounding out the list, matters involving potential conflicts of interest and violations of the gift rules each counted for 3 matters, 5%, while there was 1 matter, 2% each, for allegations of failure to adhere to laws, failure to put forth an honest effort in the performance of official duties, violations of the Local Hatch Act, and actions that substantially threatens the public trust. Next is an update on training and outreach. First, professional development trainings attended by staff. From December 8th through the 11th, Board Member Felice Smith, Supervisory Investigator Ron Cook, Supervisory Attorney Advisor Aza Stewart Mitchell, Senior Board Attorney Lynn Tran, General Counsel Rashi Raj, Attorney Advisor Maurice Eccles, and I attended the annual conference for the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws, COGL, in Los Angeles, California. I presented on a panel titled Turning Crisis into Opportunities, Strategies for Building and Restoring Public Trust in Government. The premise of the panel was to explore how controversies can serve as catalysts for positive change and strategies for transparent communication, accountability, and proactive measures within the government. The panel was moderated by Peter Lewinsky, the Executive Director of the State of Connecticut Office of Ethics. The other participants included Kavita Pat, the Deputy General Counsel at the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government, and Max Huntsman, the Inspector General for the County of Los Angeles. The panel provided practical insights on how to turn challenging situations into opportunities for rebuilding public trust and fostering a more resilient government. Senior Board Attorney Lynn Tran presented on a panel titled Federal Insights, How Did We Get Here? The Good, Bad, and Ugly. The panel was moderated by Donald Sherman, Executive Director and Chief Counsel for the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. The discussion looked at ethics trends post-election and the state of ethics reform, with a focus on Congress and the Supreme Court. Other panelists included Omar Ashway, Staff Director and Chief Counsel for the Office of Congressional Ethics, and Kedrick Payne, Vice President, General Counsel, and Senior Director of Ethics at the Campaign Legal Center. All panelists provided interesting war stories, challenges faced, and lessons learned. Finally, General Counsel Rashi Raj with Alex Kipp, Director of Education and Engagement at the New York City Conflict of Interest Board, presented a session titled Present and Presence, Improv Skills to Boost Collaboration and Connection in Our Presentations. This participatory workshop explored how to present with more authenticity and personality. Participants worked in small groups and together as a large group to run through some fun, improvisational exercises geared towards creating more dynamic and flexible trainings without any loss of content or integrity. Aside from the panel discussions that included our speakers, some of the standout sessions attended included Small But Mighty, Strategies for Success for Small Government Agencies, Lobbying Update, U.S., and Canadian federal, state, provincial, and local lobbying laws and annual favorites, Ethics Update, Ethics Roundtable, and Enforcement Updates 2024. Program Support Assistant Niquelle Titus and IT Specialist Kevin Brown both attended District of Columbia Importing and Exporting. Program Coordinator Stan Kosick attended Developing a Mindset of Growth and Learning. 100% of the agency's employees and board members completed the annual mandatory cybersecurity training by the deadline of December 31st, 2024. For trainings conducted by staff, since the last board meeting, OGE conducted 9 training sessions, the December and January monthly ethics trainings, a board and commissions training for the DC State Board of Education, 3 new employee orientation ethics trainings, the January quarterly lobbyist training, and our new quarterly outside employment training, and a customized scenario-based training for the Department of Disability Services. During the month of December, 65 employees completed ethics training using PeopleSoft, and 11 employees were added to the learning management system. OGE is in the final stage of updating the financial disclosure statement course on the learning management system, which will be available in time for the new filing season. Next is an update on outreach. On Friday, December 20th, OGE published the 6th issue of its bi-monthly newsletter, Ethically Speaking. A copy was placed in the Dropbox for your review. On January 22nd, Chairperson Hutcheson, Director Allen, and I are meeting with Councilmember Brooke Pinto and her team. The purpose of the meeting is to make introductions and to discuss opportunities for partnership around shared goals. Bega has been assigned to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety, and we look forward to establishing our relationship. Next is an update on advisory opinions and advice. First is informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 26 ethics inquiries, which is 2 less than the 28 reported at the December board meeting. This number does not include the responses we provided to questions regarding the lobbyist and FDSE filing systems. For formal advisory opinions, OGE issued 1 advisory opinion this month. This advisory opinion on lobbyist registration and reporting is to provide guidance for lobbyists and to inform district government employees of their obligations regarding lobbyists. A copy was placed in the Dropbox for your review. OGE has another advisory opinion in the works on widely attended gatherings and is in the process of editing the Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner sign-on letters advisory opinion pursuant to comments received. Annual Best Practices Report. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.02B, Bega transmitted its annual best practices report to the mayor and each member of the council on Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. The report highlights the functional achievements of both OOG and OGE from fiscal years 2024 until December of this fiscal year. It included recommendations for actions that will strengthen the district's ethics laws and transparency laws, thereby strengthening the district's public integrity. Next is an update on legislation and rulemaking. We only have 1 update there. That is the financial disclosure rulemaking. On November 1st, Bega's most recent financial disclosure rulemaking was published in the DC Register for a 30-day comment period. This financial disclosure rulemaking addresses technical and minor substantive changes to the financial disclosure regulations, provides clarity for regulations that are ambiguous, and corrects language that aligns with the Ethics Act and Chapter 18 of the District Personnel Regulations. The comment period ended Monday, December 2nd, 2024, and no comments were received. The final rulemaking was published in the Register on December 20th and is now in effect. OGE Administrative Matters. Vacancies. OGE closed its attorney advisor and human resources specialist vacancies and is now reviewing resumes. The administrative officer vacancy closed on January 13th and will be reviewed at this time. The office is in the process of posting a vacancy announcement for its legal fellow position. FY26 budget. On November 20th, OGE and OOG presented the agency's FY26 budget submission to the Office of the City Administrator. We have requested budget enhancement requests for funding to the Non-Personnel Services Fund. OGE requested funding to hire 2 full-time auditors who will enable the agency to meet its statutory requirement of auditing all financial disclosure statements on an annual basis. We have not received any updates on our requests. Also, OGE plans to submit a Budget Support Act proposal, which will amend the lobbyist section of the Ethics Act by repealing Section 1-1162.28A4, which excludes 501c4 organizations from registering as lobbyists, and adding language that requires those entities to register in the same manner as 501c3 organizations. Next is an update on Financial Disclosure Statement, FDS. Pursuant to DC Official Code Sections 1-1162.24 and 1-1162.25, public officials and certain government employees must file a financial disclosure statement as a means of transparency and to prevent engaging in conduct that violates the Financial Conflicts of Interest statute. Bega is responsible for ensuring that employees and public officials who meet the statutory requirement file their annual financial disclosure statement. The FDS team is gearing up for the spring 2025 financial disclosure filing. Program Coordinator Kosick has reached out to agency ethics counselors to confirm their contact information. Supervisory Attorney Asia Stewart Mitchell has met with a few agencies to discuss board and commission members who have been designated as filers per the recent rulemaking. The team has scheduled 3 sessions to meet with board and commission members to address any concerns they may have. The agency head letter is scheduled to go out on February 2nd, 2025. Enforcement activities continue for the 2024 late and non-filings. Next is an update on lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.27A, a person who receives compensation or expends funds in any amount of $250 or more in any 3 consecutive calendar month period for lobbying shall register with the Director of Government Ethics and pay the required registration fee. According to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.30, each registrant shall file a quarterly report concerning the registrant's lobbying activity during the previous quarter. The 2024 Quarter 4 activity reports and calendar year 2025 registrations were due yesterday, January 15, 2025. Notices were sent out to 395 registrants and point of contacts on December 20th, 2024. Support tickets have remained steady. The categories that have seen the most increase for support tickets are adding a DC official and assisting with the filing report. They encompass 86% of the requests that we've received. As mentioned earlier, Attorney Advisor Eccles and Program Coordinator Kosick provided the quarterly lobbyist training on January 8, 2025. And my last update is on public investigations. First is 24-0010F, Henry Marcellus Willis. This is a formal investigation based on a complaint that the respondent, former employee of the University of the District of Columbia, used a government purchase card to make unauthorized purchases. Respondent worked at UDC for 5 years and was responsible for handling procurement for the university. The board approved the notice of violation, which contains allegations that respondent violated DPM 1800.3G by using public office for private gain, and DPM 1800.1 by failing to protect and conserve government property. A public hearing is scheduled for March 6th and 7th, 2025. Next is 24-0016F, Henry Trayon White. This is a formal investigation based on a criminal indictment in which the respondent, council member for Ward 8 allegedly agreed to receive $156,000 in bribes and accepted $35,000 in cash from a business owner in exchange for assisting with renewing the company's violence interrupter contracts with the district government. Respondent was indicted on one count of bribery. This matter is stayed pending the outcome of the criminal court case, which is scheduled for trial on January 12, 2026. Next is 25-0002F in Retrayon White. This is a formal investigation based on allegations that the respondent, council member for Ward 8, violated the code of conduct. Specifically, this office is investigating whether the respondent filed full and complete public financial disclosure statements pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.24, and whether he violated other rules of the council's code of conduct that are separate from the ongoing criminal case. Thank you. This concludes the Office of Government Ethics January 16, 2025 report. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cooks?
Well, no questions, but just a thank you for breaking down the types of misconduct and the investigations that you did, because I got that question during my confirmation proceedings along with Councilmember Smith and a board member, and I think you're going to get it again, not only when you meet with Councilmember Pinto, but probably at our oversight hearing, because they do want to know what kinds of cases that we're seeing, what kinds of cases we're working on, so that we know, where we're focusing our efforts. So thanks for doing that. It was very, very helpful to me, especially.
Thank you again, Director Cooks. Next on the agenda are public comments. Members of the public in attendance at this meeting have an opportunity to make a comment at this time. Are there any? If there are no public comments, we will proceed with the next agenda item, and that's the executive or closed session. This session is to discuss ongoing confidential
Looks like there's a hand up.
Is there a hand up?
Public comment.
Okay. Is there a public comment? Ms. Brazil? We see your hand, but we don't hear you. Can we tell if she's muted?
Looks like a mute signal next to her name.
Ms. Brazil, are you able to unmute yourself? Is there anything we can do from this end? Right, Ms. Brazil, you have to unmute your mic. Okay. Are you able to make your comments in the chat? Okay. Well, why don't we do this? We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, and we'll come back to public comments before we adjourn today. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the executive or closed session. This session is to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code 2-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters, including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board enter into executive session. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And the motion's approved unanimously. Board members, please move to the boardroom for the executive session. We will return to this meeting after the conclusion of the executive session to report out on any matters decided, finish any other business, including public comments, and to adjourn the meeting. Okay. It is now 10:42, and we are in executive session. Amended negotiated disposition in the matter 24-0009-F, in Ray Aretha Chapman. And that's all we have. I understand that Ms. Brazil is unmuted or can unmute for the public statement. Ms. Brazil?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
During your break, I sent an email that in summary indicates the issue I have. I've noted on past agendas for Bega, you indicate that you do public meeting monitoring. I'd like a clarification on what that means. And along those lines, I would like to indicate that for the 2024 election cycle, there are specific rules and regulations and laws regarding the elections and the ability of observers to observe specific processes, including being at the polling sites, monitoring the actual election audit and election night. And increasingly, the Board of Elections has made it virtually impossible for citizens or certified observers to do so. So when the Office of Open Government says it monitors public meetings, what does that mean? Does that mean that you simply note that an agency is having a public meeting virtually and you go on and online and you see whether or not it's taking place? Or do you do anything more?
I can take that question, Ms. Brazil. As it relates to monitoring of public meetings, the Office of Open Government does send staff. So staff attends the meetings as they occur, or they review meeting recordings after the fact and report on those.
So are you familiar with whether or not for the post-election audit that is mandated in law that the Board of Elections conduct, that they conducted a audit and had it in, conducted it virtually and had neither audio, no video that you could actually see or hear what was going on? And this has been going on for some time.
Well, Ms. Brazil, we can review that as it relates to open government laws, but it sounds to me that you're talking specifically about the Board of Election laws. And in that case, OOG does not enforce those laws.
Wait. Bega enforces open meetings laws. If there is a specific regulation or provision in the code that says that the Board of Election process, a particular process, shall be open to the public, and they're not doing that, you're saying that Bega has no role in that?
Bega has OOG does have a role in any violations of the Open Meetings Act. There are other laws within the Board of Elections itself that OOG does not enforce and cannot enforce. So what I would have to do, Ms. Brazil, is we would have to see specifically what laws you are alleging the Board of Elections is violating, and see how that coincides, or if in any way coincides or violates the Open Meetings Act itself. But as a rule, open government, Office of Open Government does not enforce other agencies' laws.
Let me make sure I understand, because we're headed for the performance hearing and the budget hearing for your agency. And I want to make clear what you're doing and what you're not doing. Are you telling me that the Office of Open Government is in many ways a misnomer, that the only rules and regulations you enforce are specific open meetings laws on the books, and that if an agency such as the Board of Elections has rules and regulations specifically providing for election observers, people to observe the audit, and those are in the code and in the regulations specifically governing the Board of Elections, that you're saying that the Bega agency has nothing to do with it, cannot enforce that? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you that the Office of Open Government enforces the Open Meetings Act. You know, Ms. Brazil, we've had conversations with you before, and we're happy to meet with you or speak with you directly regarding any specific issues you may have with the Board of Elections laws. I mean, my staff is happy to go through what you are alleging the violations are specifically, but it's a little difficult to address what your specific concern is without knowing what law you're alleging the Board of Elections to violate.
No. We're not going there. I want this board, prior to your performance hearing and your budget hearing, to know that there's a great deal of discontent out there in the community and among advocates as regards what does Bega do? Quite simply, what does Bega do? And to put me off by saying, oh, submit something to us, oh, you can come in and discuss it. No. If you're monitoring meetings that are supposed to be open to the public, and the most important meeting regarding the Board of Elections is, for example, their post-election audit, and they're refusing to provide audio or video of that post-election audit, and you're telling me that because it's not in the open meetings law that you can't do anything, then why does Bega exist? Why do you exist?
Everything else? Okay. Okay, Ms. Brazil, we've probably exceeded your 2-minute limit, but we don't have any further response for you. Okay.
That's typical.
If I could just want, this is Chip Nottingham, board member. I want to thank you, Ms. Brazil, for your comments. We have heard over time about there are some community concerns about some of the practices of the Board of Elections. Obviously, elections can, by nature, can be controversial things and demand a lot of attention. I think what I'm hearing is our staff is willing and able to look into this matter, to communicate further with you, to gather perhaps more information as to whether this is an Open Meetings Act violation or if it's something else, or sort of best practices being followed. Is there anything we can learn from Board of Elections? There's a lot of things we can do in the way of communicating that's short of pretending we're enforcing some law that we aren't authorized to enforce. So I just don't want you to leave this comment period, Ms. Brazil, with the impression that this agency is not prepared to do anything. What we're saying is we're forward leaning. We want to be responsive. Our powers are not unlimited. They're limited, but we can certainly look into what's going on at other DC agencies vis-a-vis giving the public the access they're supposed to have to different DC government proceedings. Whether or not that leads to a formal investigation or whether that's even something in our purview is another matter. But it's something I just would encourage our senior staff to work with Ms. Brazil and also perhaps reach out to the Board of Elections just to find out what's going on here. We're just hearing concerns, but under the general rubric of public access to DC government functions and just what's up. Thank you.
Okay, the time is now 11:26, and this concludes the meeting of the DC Board of Government of Ethics and Government Accountability. The next meeting will be held at the board here at 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700, and virtually on February 6, 2025 at 10 a.m. Thank you.